Enrique more adjusted his Brooks Brothers tie. At 52, he still possessed the sharp, alert presence that had enabled him to build Meditech Solutions from nothing into a billion-dollar enterprise. His salt and pepper hair was freshly trimmed, his Italian shoes gleamed beneath the mall lights, and his Rolex caught the afternoon sun streaming through the skylight. He had just concluded a lunch meeting at the upscale Riverside Bistro and was making his way toward the parking garage when familiar voices halted him in his tracks. "God, did you see what Dad was wearing to that board meeting yesterday?" Zara's voice carried across the atrium, dripping with disdain. "That tie was so last season. Mom says he has no sense of style." Enrique instinctively stepped behind a massive marble pillar, his heart racing. He had not intended to eavesdrop, but something in his eldest daughter's tone made him pause. Through the reflective surface of a nearby storefront window, he could see his 17-year-old triplets gathered around a cafe table, shopping bags from luxury boutiques piled at their feet. Zara, ever the ringleader, sat with perfect posture in her designer outfit, her long dark hair styled in expensive layers. She looked so much like her mother, Sherry, that it sometimes pained him to gaze upon her. Lucas lounged in his chair, his private school uniform jacket discarded, scrolling through his phone with obvious disinterest. Sophia, the youngest by mere minutes, perched on the edge of her seat, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "At least he's good for the credit cards," Lucas smirked, not looking up from his phone. "Speaking of which, I need him to sign off on that new Porsche before the transfer." As if that matters, Zara rolled her eyes. With calculated precision, she stirred her iced latte as her mother remarked, "Once he signs the company over on our 18th birthday, we won't need his permission for anything anymore." Enrique's fingers tightened around his briefcase handle, his knuckles turning white. The conversation he was overhearing couldn't be real. This had to be some form of teenage rebellion, typical adolescent ingratitude. But his daughter's next words shattered that comforting illusion. "Uncle Ray says he's already got the adoption papers ready," Zara continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that still carried clearly to Enrique's hiding spot. "Mom's boss is going to be our real dad. Finally, legally, and everything." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Ray Aguilar, CEO of BioAdvance, Meditech's biggest competitor, the man who had been calling himself Uncle Ray to Enrique's children for years. The man who always seemed to be at their house during Enrique's business trips, claiming he was merely checking on the family as a close friend. "Did you see his face when we asked for those new cars?" Lucas finally looked up from his phone, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "He actually thinks we're going to keep him around after the transfer. Like, what does he think this is? He'll probably end up in some retirement home in Florida, boring the nurses with stories about how he built a company from nothing." Lucas mimicked Enrique's voice with savage accuracy. Enrique's chest tightened. Each breath became more difficult than the last. He had given them everything: private schools, luxury cars, summer homes, unlimited credit cards. He had missed crucial deals and important meetings to attend their soccer games and dance recitals. He had built Meditech not just for himself, but to leave a legacy for his children. Sophia shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her eyes fixed on her untouched coffee. "Maybe we shouldn't," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, grow up, Sophia," Zara cut her off with a sharp gesture. "Mom and Ray already have everything planned." Everything had been planned. The lawyers were just waiting for our birthday. Besides, she tossed her hair over her shoulder, "He's not even our real father. Mom told me Ray has been there since the beginning. Dad was just too stupid and focused on his precious company to notice." "Yeah, remember that time he tried to ground me for taking his car?" Lucas snorted. "Mom and Ray thought it was hilarious. They took me to that Lakers game anyway," right under his nose. "Ray says Dad's getting sloppy at work too," Zara added, examining her manicured nails. "The board's already worried about some of his recent decisions. Once the transfer happens, it'll be easy to push him out completely. Ray says he's actually doing Dad a favor. At least this way he gets to pretend it's his choice to retire." The world had narrowed to this moment, to these voices that both were and weren't his children's. Enrique's mind raced through years of memories, recontextualizing every business trip where Ray had happened to be in town, every time Sherry had insisted on handling the children's medical records herself, every board meeting where his competitors seemed to know his moves before he made them. "I heard Mom on the phone with Ray last night," Zara continued, lowering her voice further. They're thinking of selling the house once everything's done. Ray got this amazing place in Beverly Hills. Indoor pool, tennis court, everything. Mom says we shouldn't feel bad about Dad. He'll have plenty of money to live on. Just not, our kind of money. Whatever, Luke stretched, checking his watch. We should go. We've got that dinner with Ray tonight, and Mom wants us to practice calling him Dad when it's just us. She says we need to get used to it before everything's official. Sophia stood quickly, gathering her things without meeting her sibling's eyes. I have to study, she mumbled. But Zara grabbed her wrist. Don't even think about warning him, she hissed, all pretense of casual cruelty dropping from her voice. Mother remarked that you have been behaving strangely of late. Recall where your loyalties should lie, little sister. Ray is destined to succeed our father and will take the helm at Meditech. That is the unalterable reality. Do not jeopardize this for us. The triplets collected their shopping bags and proceeded toward the mall exit, their voices gradually dissolving into the ambient clamor of the shopping center. Enrique lingered behind the pillar, his body stiff, his thoughts racing through years of recollections that now seemed like meticulously crafted falsehoods. The entrepreneur who had erected an empire from the ground up, who had steered through corporate acquisitions and economic downturns, who had transformed the landscape of medical device production, stood immobilized long after his offspring had vanished from sight. His phone vibrated in his pocket, likely Sherry, inquiring why he had not yet returned for their family supper. Family. The word left a bitter residue in his mouth. Finally, with robotic exactness, Enrique straightened his necktie, adjusted his hold on his briefcase, and strode toward the parking structure. His expression revealed nothing of the cataclysm that had just shattered his reality. He had learned long ago that in the corporate world, the most perilous instant occurs when one first uncovers treachery. The crucial step was not to respond at once, but to compile intelligence, to strategize, to ready oneself. As he settled into the driver's seat of his Mercedes, Enrique retrieved his phone and dialed a number he had not used in years. Kurt, it's Enrique Moore. Recall that obligation you owe me. I require access to certain security recordings. And, Kurt, let us keep this matter confidential. The gentle whir of computer servers provided a constant backdrop in the dimly lit security office as Kurt Osborne, head of security at MedTech, summoned file after file onto his displays. The wall clock indicated 2:47 a.m., yet neither man exhibited any indication of weariness. They had been engaged in this task for hours, systematically assembling a chronology of deceit. Here is another one, Kurt murmured, his fingers skimming across the keyboard. On the 15th of February last year, Ray's car appeared in your driveway at 2 p.m., a time when you were attending a medical conference in Singapore. He did not depart until he had verified another timestamp. At 11:47 p.m., Enrique stood behind Kurt's chair, his tie loosened, yet his focus remained razor-sharp. Show me the front door camera from around 6 p.m., he directed. The footage played silently, revealing Ray Aguilar, CEO of BioAdvance, carrying what appeared to be takeout containers and a bottle of wine. Sherry greeted him at the door, wearing a dress Enrique had purchased for their anniversary. The casual intimacy of their exchange conveyed its own narrative. Do you want to see more? Kurt inquired quietly, his hand poised above the keyboard. No, Enrique replied, his voice steady. Show me the parking garage footage from their office meetings. New windows populated the screens, displaying Sherry's Mercedes pulling into the BioAdvance executive garage on days she had claimed to be at charity luncheons. The timestamp on one video caused Enrique's jaw to clench. It was from the day of Lucas's championship soccer game, the very one Sherry had missed, citing a migraine. I found something else, Kurt said, pulling up a different window. Do you recall the leak regarding the new arterial stent design last year? The one that allowed BioAdvance to file their patent 3 days before us. Security footage showed Sherry in Ray's office, holding what was unmistakably a Meditech product development folder. The timestamp aligned perfectly with BioAdvance's sudden breakthrough in stent technology. She has been feeding him information for years, Enrique said, his voice cold. All those convenient coincidences, all those instances our competitors seem to anticipate our moves in advance. There is more. Kurt hesitated, then revealed a series of recovered email exchanges. They have been planning this for some time. The transfer of your shares to the triplets on their 18th birthday. It is only the first step. They have already drafted board resolutions to force you into retirement. The Ray family stands prepared to move in within hours of the transfer. Enrique walked to the window, gazing out at the city lights below. The triplets' medical records. I need them, he said. Kurt nodded, accessing more files. It took some effort, but I gained access to their complete histories. Blood types, genetic screening, everything. He paused, looking at his old friend. Do you want the DNA comparison? Do it. Moments later, the results filled the screen. The science was undeniable. The triplets were Enrique's biological children. The paternity probability exceeded 99.9%. They have been lying to them their entire lives. Enrique's voice finally cracked. My own children. They made my children hate me with a lie. Kurt stood up, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. What do you want to do? We have enough here for criminal charges, corporate espionage, fraud. No. Enrique turned back to the screens, his moment of vulnerability passing. Criminal charges would hurt the company, hurt the triplets. They may hate me, but they are still my children. I need something else, something that will expose Ray and Sherry without destroying everything I have built. There might be a way, Kurt said slowly. I have been tracking some irregular patterns in bioadvanced research data and in their financial reports. Something is not adding up, but we need help, someone who knows how to follow the money. Enrique pulled out his phone, checking the time. It is time I called in some favors. Remember Jody Park, the corporate attorney? The one who tried to poach you for her firm last year. She owes me, and she hates Ray Aguilar. He attempted a hostile takeover of one of her favorite clients last year. Enrique straightened his tie, his decision made. Get me everything you can on bioadvanced patents, everything they have filed since Ray took over. I want to know which ones were actually theirs and which ones were stolen from us. What about Sherry and the kids? Enrique's face hardened. Keep watching them. I want to know everywhere they go, everyone they meet. Especially regarding Ray, I want to know every restaurant he takes them to, every promise he makes, every lie he tells. He paused, then added, and Kurt, pay special attention to Sophia. Something about her reaction today. She might not be as committed to their plan as they think. As Enrique left the security office, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the city. His world had shattered, but from the pieces, he would build something new. Something that would teach Ray Aguilar, Sherry, and his misguided children the true meaning of strategy. The private conference room at Park & Associates commanded a stunning view of the city, but none of the room's occupants were admiring the scenery. Papers and laptops covered the massive mahogany table, and the whiteboard was filled with flowcharts and timelines. Jody Park, a sharp-featured woman in her 40s wearing a perfectly tailored Armani suit, stood at the head of the table, marker in hand. Let me make sure I understand, she said, circling a particular date on the timeline. Ray filed for a patent on the bioresorbable stent technology 3 days before Meditech, but your research team had been working on it for 18 months prior. 22 months, Enrique corrected, pushing forward a thick folder. Here's the complete development timeline, including all lab tests and prototypes. Notice the dates on the electron microscopy images. Frankie Hampton, the forensic accountant they brought in, whistled softly as she examined the documents. And bioadvanced version is practically identical, down to the polymer coating formulation. Identical enough that it couldn't be coincidence, Kirk confirmed, pulling up comparison images on his laptop. But that's just the beginning. Look at their last 3 major product launches. Jody moved to the whiteboard, drawing new connections. Each one corresponds to a major Meditech project. Each time, they filed patents just days before you were ready to go public. She turned to Enrique, her expression intense and fierce. This is industrial espionage, pure and simple. We could bury them in criminal charges. No. Enrique shook his head. Criminal charges would tank both companies' stock. Thousands of innocent employees would suffer. And my children, he paused, controlling his voice. My children's trust funds are tied to Meditech's success. I won't punish them for their mother's crimes. Then what's our play? Frankie asked, spreading out bioadvanced financial statements. Because something else stinks here. Their R&D budgets don't match their output. And these shell companies, she pointed to several entries. They're paying out millions to consulting firms that seem to exist only on paper. Jody's eyes narrowed. Show me those shell companies. For the next hour, they followed the money. Ray had been clever, but not clever enough. The shell companies led to offshore accounts. The offshore accounts led to luxury properties, and the properties, son of a, Kurt breathed, staring at the ownership documents. He's been setting up love nests. Multiple properties, multiple women. 4 of them, Frankie confirmed, her fingers flying over her calculator. Each one set up the same way. Luxury condo, credit cards, monthly allowance. All paid for with company money, hidden through the shell corporations. And Sherry doesn't know, Enrique said quietly. She thinks she's special. She thinks he's going to leave his wife for her, just like she left me. This is it, Jody said, excitement in her voice. This is how we destroy him. Not with criminal charges, with disclosure. His wife sits on BioAdvance board. She owns 20% of the company's shares through her family trust. When she finds out he's been using company money to fund multiple affairs, she'll burn him to the ground. Frankie finished. And when the board sees the evidence of patent theft and fraud, but timing is everything, Enrique interrupted. Ray and Sherry are expecting me to sign over my shares to the triplets on their 18th birthday. Do you think I am unaware of their schemes? We must capitalize on that. Jod began writing swiftly on the whiteboard. We need to lead them to believe they are winning, to make them overconfident. If Ray thinks he is on the verge of obtaining everything he desires, he will grow careless. People invariably commit errors when they assume victory is already theirs. I believe I understand how, Frankie interjected, pulling up another spreadsheet. Look at these research budgets. BioAdvance has been operating at a loss for the past 3 quarters, but they are concealing it through creative accounting. If we could compel them to make a major acquisition just before the truth emerges, an acquisition? Kurt raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? Enrique stood up, the city sprawling below like a labyrinth of opportunities and betrayals. They will want the Meditech manufacturing division. Ray's ego will not allow him to forego the chance to own the company he has been pilfering from. But the manufacturing division is your strongest asset, Jod protested. The patents and research are valuable, but your production facilities are what grant you market dominance. A faint smile touched Enrique's lips. Are they? Frankie, show them what you uncovered in the quality control reports. The forensic accountant opened another file. There have been some issues over the past 6 months. Nothing catastrophic yet, but the trend lines are troubling. If these problems are not addressed, she allowed the implication to linger in the air. So we split the company, Jod said slowly, comprehension dawning in her eyes. We sell the manufacturing arm to BioAdvance, just when Ray believes he is about to take over anyway. He will think he is snatching it out from under you. But what about the patents and research division? Kurt inquired. We take them to someone else, Enrique stated firmly. Someone who understands how to safeguard intellectual property. Someone who despises Ray Aguilar as much as we do. Jody's eyes brightened. Rex Church. He has been attempting to enter the medical device market for years, and after what Ray did to his, in the semiconductor division, Enrique turned back to the group. None of this will work if they suspect anything. I need to appear vulnerable and defeated. That is going to be tough, Kurt said, concern evident in his voice. You are not exactly known for showing weakness. Then I will have to give the performance of my life, Enrique replied, loosening his tie slightly. Starting tomorrow, I want rumors about my stability to start circulating. Nothing obvious, just enough to make people worry. I can help with that, Jod offered. A few strategic conversations with board members, some concerns about recent decisions. And I will start appearing slightly disheveled at meetings, Enrique continued. Nothing dramatic, just enough to fuel the whispers. Let Ray think his plan is working better than he expected. What about Sherry and the kids? Kurt asked quietly. Pain flashed across Enrique's face before he controlled it. Keep watching them. Every move, every meeting, every conversation. I need to know everything they do with Ray, especially Sophia. Something about her reactions does not fit the pattern. And the DNA results. Frankie asked gently, do you want us to prepare documentation about their true paternity? Enrique stared out at the city lights for a long moment. Yes, but keep it separate from everything else. That is not about revenge, it is about truth. My children deserve to know who they really are, even if they hate me for telling them. This is going to take perfect timing, Jod warned, looking at the complex web of relationships and transactions they had mapped out on the whiteboard. One wrong move, one leak, and everything falls apart. Then we do not leak, Enrique said firmly. Everyone in this room has a reason to hate Ray Aguilar, but more importantly, everyone in this room knows how to keep a secret. We plan everything down to the smallest detail. We prepare for every contingency, and when the time comes, he picked up a dry erase marker and drew a final line connecting all their plans. Show them what corporate strategy truly means. The room fell silent as they contemplated the magnitude of what they were planning. Finally, Frankie spoke up. I will need complete access to bio-advanced financial records, the legal ones and the hidden ones. You will have it, Jod promised. I still have contacts in their accounting department, people who owe me favors. And I will start compiling the evidence of patent theft, Kurt added. Every stolen design, every leaked document, every suspicious timing coincidence. By the time we are done, there will not be any doubt about what they did. Enrique nodded, his face set in determined lines. Good. Remember, from this moment on, we trust no one outside this room. Ray and Sherry believe they have spent years planning my downfall. We will show them what a real long game looks like. As the meeting broke up, Jod held Enrique back. Are you certain about this? Once we start, there is no going back. Your relationship with your children, my relationship with my children is already gone, Enrique said quietly. They made sure of that. All I can do now is ensure they learn the truth about Ray, about their mother, and about themselves. What they do with that truth will be up to them. The lights of the city continued to twinkle below, indifferent to the plans being made in the quiet conference room. Enrique Moore, the man who had built an empire from nothing, was preparing to risk everything, not for revenge, but for justice. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he clung to a sliver of hope that at least one of his children might eventually understand why he had to do it. The early morning light filtered through the blinds of Frankie Hampton's office as she spread dozens of financial statements across her desk. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights spent unraveling bio-advanced complex web of financial deception. A half-empty coffee cup balanced precariously on a stack of audit reports. Look at this, she said, highlighting a series of transactions on her monitor. As Enrique leaned over her shoulder, she explained, they're routing research and development funds through at least 7 different shell companies before the money hits their actual accounts. It's a classic money laundering structure, but they've added extra steps to make it appear like legitimate R&D spending. Enrique studied the numbers, his expression carefully neutral. And you're certain you can document all of this? Every penny. Frankie pulled up another spreadsheet. Ray's been cooking the books for years. Bio looks profitable on paper, but they're hemorrhaging money. Last quarter alone, they lost nearly $40 million, all hidden through creative accounting. The forensic accountant turned to face Enrique, her professional demeanor slipping just enough to reveal genuine concern. There's something else. Those consulting fees they're paying to shell corporations, they're not just hiding the affair with your wife. There are multiple properties, multiple accounts. Ray is running the same scheme with at least 3 other women. Enrique absorbed this information without visible reaction, but his fingers tightened imperceptibly on the back of Frankie's chair. Show me the pattern. For the next hour, they traced payment after payment. Luxury condos in 4 different cities, credit cards issued through shell companies, wire transfers disguised as business consulting fees. All of it was paid for with bio-advanced money, and all of it was hidden from shareholders and the board. The question is, Frankie said finally, how do we use this? Before Enrique could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Kurt. Board meeting just ended. Rumors working. 3 members asked about your health today. A ghost of a smile touched Enrique's lips. The performance he had been crafting was bearing fruit. For the past few weeks, he had carefully cultivated an image of a man beginning to crack under pressure. His normally immaculate suits were just slightly rumpled, his legendary composure subtly frayed. Punctuality had given way to arriving a few minutes late to meetings, and most importantly, he had begun carrying a water bottle filled with apple juice, letting people draw their own conclusions when they saw him sipping from it throughout the day. Mr. Moore, Jessica, his assistant, appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Moore is on the line, she said. It's about the triplets' birthday party planning. Enrique shared a knowing look with Frankie before picking up the phone. Sherry, yes, I was just reviewing some reports. He let his voice slur slightly, just enough to be noticeable. On the other end, he could practically hear Sherry's predatory smile. Enrique, darling, are you feeling all right? You sound tired. Just focused on work. The Johnson account. He deliberately mixed up the details of a major client meeting, something the old Enrique would never do. Perhaps you should take some time off. Sherry's voice dripped with false concern. The children and I are worried about you. Even Ray mentioned you seemed distracted at the last industry conference. Enrique's free hand clenched into a fist, but his voice remained deliberately unsteady. Ray? Yes, good old Ray. Always looking out for the family. We just want what's best for you, darling. Why don't you let me handle the birthday preparations? You focus on getting better. After ending the call, Enrique turned to find Frankie watching him with a mixture of admiration and concern. That was quite a performance. They need to think they're winning, Enrique said, his voice returning to its normal sharp clarity. The more vulnerable I appear, the bolder they'll become. And the bolder they become, the more mistakes they'll make. Frankie finished his thought. She turned back to her computer, pulling up a new set of documents. Speaking of mistakes, look what I found buried in BioAdvance's internal audit reports. The screen showed a series of quality control warnings that had been systematically ignored, failed safety tests swept under the rug, design flaws deliberately overlooked. Flaws concealed through falsified data. BioAdvance's entire product line was been constructed upon a foundation of fraud. Their entire regulatory compliance program is a house of cards, Frankie explained. One solid push, and the entire structure collapses. The question is, how do we ensure we are not caught within the blast radius? Enrique studied the reports, his mind racing through possibilities. We need someone else to cast the first stone, someone with clean hands. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Jody Park entered, her expression triumphant. You are not going to believe who just contacted me, she announced. Rex Church's general counsel. Enrique's eyebrows rose. Rex Church, CEO of Church Industries and BioAdvance's largest competitor, was known for his aggressive expansion strategies and his personal vendetta against Ray Aguilar, who had once attempted a hostile takeover of one of Church's subsidiary companies. They have heard rumors about your difficulties, Jody continued, her eyes gleaming. They are interested in discussing potential acquisitions. Are they now? Enrique's voice was thoughtful. And what exactly are they interested in acquiring? That is the beautiful part, Jody smiled. They want to know if you would consider splitting up Meditech. Apparently, they have heard you might be open to selling the research division separately from manufacturing. Frankie looked between them, understanding dawning on her face. If we could structure the deal correctly, we could give everyone exactly what they want, Enrique concluded, or at least what they believe they want. The morning sun had climbed higher, illuminating Frankie's desk covered with damning financial documents. In that moment, all the pieces they had been gathering began to align into a clear pattern of destruction. There is just one thing, Frankie said hesitantly. The trust funds are tied to Meditech stock. If we split the company, their interests will be protected. Enrique's voice was firm. Everything I have built, everything. I am about to tear it all down. It was always for them, even if they end up hating me for it. He walked to the window, watching the city below come to life. Somewhere out there, Ray and Sherry were probably congratulating themselves on how well their plan was working. They had no idea they were falling into a trap years in the making. Set up the meeting with Church's people, he told Jod, but through intermediaries. We can't let Ray catch even a whisper of this until everything is in place. And your performance, Frankie? She asked quietly. How long can you keep it up? Enrique straightened his intentionally crooked tie, letting his shoulders slump just slightly, the perfect picture of a man trying too hard to maintain appearances. As long as necessary, he said. After all, a ghost of his old smile flickered across his face. The show must go on. The private dining room at the St. Regis Hotel buzzed with quiet tension as Rex Church's attorneys reviewed the proposed deal structure. No one touched the elaborate lunch spread before them. Let me make sure I understand. Elizabeth Chun, Church Industries lead counsel, said carefully. You're proposing to split Meditech into two distinct entities. The Research and Development Division, including all current patents and pending applications, would go to Church Industries, while the manufacturing facilities would be spun off as a separate company. Is that correct? Jod Park confirmed, sliding another document across the polished mahogany table. We've already prepared the preliminary valuation reports for both divisions. Elizabeth studied the numbers with practiced skepticism. These manufacturing facilities, they're some of the most advanced in the industry. Why separate them from R&D? Enrique, sitting at the head of the table, lifted his water bottle with a slightly trembling hand. Several of the lawyers exchanged knowing glances at the faint smell of what they assumed was vodka, but was actually apple juice. Sometimes, he said, his words deliberate and measured, it is necessary to divide in order to conquer. The words were carefully chosen to seem slightly unclear. One must know when to let go. On the manufacturing side, it has become too much, too many details, too many moving parts. It is better to focus on what we do best: innovation, research, moving the industry forward. The performance was perfect. A once proud CEO, trying to maintain dignity while his world crumbled. Elizabeth's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Like everyone else in the industry, she had heard the rumors about Enrique Moore's declining stability. And you're certain you want to structure it this way? She pressed. Once the split is announced, other buyers might emerge for the manufacturing division. Let them, Jod interjected smoothly. In fact, we're counting on it. A bidding war would only increase shareholder value. The unspoken name hung in the air: BioAdvance. Everyone knew Ray Aguilar wouldn't be able to resist the opportunity to acquire his rival's production facilities. The meeting continued for hours, diving deep into technical details and legal requirements. Through it all, Enrique maintained his carefully crafted facade of a man barely holding himself together. He mixed up updates, forgot key terms, and had to have basic concepts re-explained, all while dropping subtle hints about the manufacturing division's potential. As the lawyers packed up their briefcases, Elizabeth held Enrique back with a gentle touch on his arm. Mr. Moore, are you sure about this? Once we announce the split, there's no going back. Enrique let his hand shake slightly as he reached for his water bottle. Sometimes, Miss Chun, the only way forward is to break everything apart and see what rises from the pieces. Later that evening, in Jody's office, the mask dropped. Enrique stood straight and alert, his mind sharp as ever, as they reviewed the meeting's outcomes. Church's board will approve the deal, Jod confirmed, hanging up her phone. They're practically salivating over the research division. And our sources say, Ray is already making noise about bidding for the manufacturing facilities. Of course he is. Enrique's voice held a cold satisfaction. His ego won't let him pass up the chance to own the factories that have been outproducing his for years, especially when he thinks I'm too broken to fight back. The timing will be crucial, Jod warned. We need the deals to close almost simultaneously. If Ray gets any hint of what's really in those manufacturing reports, he won't proceed. He's too focused on the bigger prize, Enrique assured her. By the time he realizes what he's actually buying, it'll be too late. A knock at the door interrupted them. Kurt entered, his face grave. You need to see this, he said, handing over his tablet. Security camera footage showed Ray and Schur at an intimate dinner, their heads close together as they celebrated their apparent victory. But it was the third person at the table that made Enrique's breath catch: Lucas, his son, listening intently as Ray gestured expansively, clearly painting pictures of a golden future. They're moving faster than we expected, Kurt said quietly. Ray's already positioning himself as a mentor to Lucas, talking about grooming him to take over the combined companies once the dust settles. Enrique watched his son's eager expression, seeing the same ambition that had driven his own rise in business. But Lucas's ambition was twisted by lies and manipulation, pointed like a weapon at the very legacy Enrique had built for him. Speed up the timeline, he ordered, his voice tight with controlled emotion. I want both deals ready to close before the triplets' birthday. Let Ray think he's forcing our hand. Are you sure? Jod asked. Moving too quickly increases the risk of mistakes. The biggest mistake, Enrique said, still watching his son laugh at something Ray had said, would be letting them poison my children any further. Get it done. As his team dispersed to set the accelerated plan in motion, Enrique remained in Jody's office, staring out at the city beyond. The sky darkened, the city lights below reflected in the window, creating the illusion of stars falling. Soon, very soon, Ray's entire empire would fall just as dramatically. The private office of Alma Crosby, college counselor at Westfield Academy, was designed to put students at ease. Warm lighting, comfortable chairs, and walls lined with college pennants created an atmosphere of possibility and trust. But on this particular afternoon, a week before the triplets' 18th birthday, the room crackled with tension. Sophia Moore sat rigid in one of the plush armchairs, her designer uniform perfectly pressed, her hands twisted together in her lap. Tears streaked her carefully applied makeup. "I can't do it anymore, Miss Crosby," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Every time I see him at breakfast, trying so hard to connect with us, and Zara and Lucas they're so cruel to him. And Mom just watches, smiling, like it's all going according to plan." Alma leaned forward, concern etched on her kind face. "Your father? He's not." Sophia stopped, swallowed hard, then continued in a rush. "That's just it. He is my father, my real father. I found the DNA test results in Mom's home office last month. She must have stolen them from Dad's files. Ray, he's been lying to us our whole lives. They both have, unknown to either of them." Enrique stood frozen in the hallway outside, his hand raised to knock. He had come to discuss Sophia's college applications, maintaining his role as the involved parent even as his master plan neared its culmination. Instead, he found himself holding his breath, listening to his youngest child finally speak her truth. "I don't know what to do," Sophia continued, her voice small. "Zara and Lucas are so excited about Ray adopting us after the company transfer. They talk about it constantly, how we'll finally be a real family, how much better everything will be once Dad is out of the picture. But it's all built on lies. Have you considered telling what did you find, Alma?" Sophia asked gently. Her bitter laugh held none of her usual softness. "They wouldn't believe me. Mom and Ree have them completely convinced. And even if they did believe me, Mom would know I was the one who found the tests. She'd tell Ree, and he can be scary sometimes when things don't go his way." Enrique's hand clenched into a fist at these words. He'd seen Ree's temper in business dealings, but the thought of his daughter fearing that rage. "Last week," Sophia continued, "I heard him on the phone after everyone else had gone to bed. He was so angry about something at work, screaming about how he'd destroy anyone who tried to stop him from getting what he deserved. It was like a mask slipped, and I saw who he really was." "Sophia," Alma's voice was gentle but firm. "If you're afraid—" "I'm not afraid for myself," Sophia interrupted. "I'm afraid for Dad. You should see how Mom and Ree look at him lately, like vultures circling something wounded. And he seems so tired, so defeated sometimes. I want to tell him everything, warn him somehow. But what if I'm too late? What if telling him now would only make things worse? And Zara and Lucas, they'd never forgive me. We're triplets, we're supposed to stick together, but everything feels wrong, like we're all playing parts in some horrible play, and I can't remember my lines anymore." Outside the door, Enrique closed his eyes, letting Sophia's words wash over him. His careful plan, his orchestrated downfall, all of it took on a different meaning knowing that at least one of his children had seen through the lies. "I did try to talk to Lucas once," Sophia admitted. "After he and Zara spent an entire dinner mocking Dad's drinking problem, I told him maybe we should be concerned instead of cruel. But he just laughed and said Ree had explained everything. How Dad's weakness was why the company needed new leadership, how we were better off without him. He actually seemed proud of." As we were helping to push Dad out, the bell rang, signaling the end of the period. Sophia quickly wiped her eyes, pulling her mask of the perfect private school student back into place. "Miss Crosby, please don't tell anyone about this. I don't know who to trust anymore." Alma reached across her desk to squeeze Sophia's hand. "Everything said in this office stays confidential, Sophia. But I want you to know you can always come talk to me. And if things ever feel unsafe, they don't," Sophia assured her quickly. "Not physically, anyway. It's just," she struggled to find the words. "It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, knowing you could warn someone but being too afraid to speak up." After Sophia left, carefully composing her face into its usual mask of private school perfection, Enrique remained in the shadows of the hallway, his mind racing with new information, new variables to consider. The corporate chess game he'd been playing suddenly felt hollow compared to the pain in his daughter's voice. He made his way back to his car, nodding absently to students who greeted him. His phone buzzed continuously, jawed with updates about the deals, Frankie with more financial discoveries, CT with surveillance reports. But for the first time since this all began, Enrique hesitated. In his car, safely behind tinted windows, he pulled out the latest reports about bio-advanced manufacturing defects. The evidence was damning. Rushed quality controls, covered-up safety issues, potential recalls waiting to happen. His plan to let Ray acquire this ticking time bomb was perfect from a revenge perspective, but now, his phone rang. Kurt's number. The surveillance photos just came in. His head of security reported without preamble. Ray's meeting with Luke wasn't a one-time thing. They've been having regular mentoring sessions at the BioAdvance office. He's grooming him, Enrique, teaching him exactly the wrong lessons about business, about family, about everything. Enrique watched a group of students. As students passed by his car, their lives remained untouched by corporate intrigue and family betrayal. But what of Zara? Hers was a similar story. Sherry had been taking her to charity events, introducing her as Ray's future stepdaughter. The society pages were already embracing this narrative, the tragic tale of a businessman losing his grip while a more suitable father figure steps in to rescue the family. The rage that Enrique had been carefully controlling threatened to break free. It was one thing to steal his company, to attempt to destroy his legacy, but to twist his children's minds, to poison them not only against him but against the very principles he had striven to teach them. That was beyond endurance. Sir, CTK's voice held a note of concern. Should we adjust the plan? Enrique thought of Sophia's tears, of Lucas's eager apprenticeship in corruption, of Zara's practiced cruelty. He thought of Ray's naked rage that had frightened his daughter, and of Sherry's calculated manipulation of their children's hearts. No, he said finally, his voice hard. But we add safeguards. Triple-check the trust fund structures. Make absolutely certain the children are protected financially, no matter what happens to BioAdvance or Meditech. And Kurt, get me everything you have on Ray's temper. Every business dealing that turned violent, every threat, every incident. If he ever comes near my children with that rage, already compiling it, Kurt assured him. And Sophia? After what you overheard, we protect her, Enrique said firmly. But we don't reveal our hand. Not yet. She's safer if Ray and Sherry think she's still under their control. He paused, then added softly. But make sure she knows she has allies. Have Alma reach out to her about that summer program at the Medical Research Institute, the one that could lead to early college admission. After ending the call, Enrique sat in his car for a long moment, watching the school slowly empty of students. His phone buzzed again, jawed with news that Church Industries had. The timeline had accelerated. Everything was now moving faster, racing toward a conclusion that would shatter multiple lives. The perfect revenge was within his grasp. Ray's downfall was practically guaranteed. But now, knowing that at least one of his children saw through the lies, Enrique faced his most difficult decision yet. How to destroy the corrupt without crushing the innocent. How to expose the truth without shattering the very people he was trying to protect. As he finally started his car, Enrique's mind was already racing with modifications to his plan. The corporate endgame would proceed as arranged. Ray and Sherry had earned every bit of destruction coming their way. But for his children, especially Sophia, he would need to create something else, an escape route, a way back, a chance at redemption. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of red as Enrique drove away from Westfield Academy. Behind him, his daughter Sophia watched from an upper window, her face troubled as she observed his obvious distraction. Neither father nor daughter knew it yet, but this moment, this quiet scene of watching and being watched, of concern flowing both ways, would prove to be the turning point that would shape everything that followed. At BioAdvance headquarters, glass walls gleamed as Ray Aguilar strode through the lobby, his signature confident smile firmly in place. The security guard's "Good morning, Mr. Aguilar," was met with barely a nod. Today was too important for such pleasantries. In 3 days, the triplets would turn 18. In 3 days, everything he had worked for would finally fall into place. The manufacturing division of Meditech would be his, and Ray Moore would be finished. And Ray would have both the family and the empire he deserved. His phone buzzed, Sherry's name lighting up the screen. "Everything's ready," she purred without preamble. "The lawyers have the adoption papers prepared. The kids are so excited, especially Lucas. He can't stop talking. regarding the opportunity to learn the business from you. A perfect smile spread across Ray's face as he stepped into his private elevator. Enrique was barely functioning. He had actually stumbled during yesterday's board meeting, started rambling about old projects, and couldn't keep the numbers straight. The board members could hardly bring themselves to look at him. The elevator doors opened directly into Ray's executive suite, where his assistant stood waiting with a stack of documents. The Meditech manufacturing acquisition papers just arrived, sir. They require your signature. Ray reached for the Mont Blanc pen on his desk, its weight satisfying in his hand. These documents represented everything he had schemed for, years of patient manipulation finally bearing fruit. He began signing with flourishing strokes, each signature driving another nail into Enrique Moore's coffin. Sir, his assistant's voice trembled slightly. There are some people here from the FDA. Ray's head snapped up. 3 stern-faced individuals in suits stood in his doorway, flanked by federal agents in tactical gear. The lead investigator held up a badge. Mr. Aguilar, I'm Inspector Saratan from the FDA's Criminal Investigation Unit. We have a warrant to search these premises and seize all documents relating to your product safety testing and research data. The pen slipped from Ray's fingers, leaving an ugly black slash across the acquisition papers. There must be some mistake, he began, but the words died in his throat as more agents poured into his office. No mistake, sir. Inspector Chin's voice was cold. We've received detailed documentation about systematic falsification of safety data, covered-up quality control failures, and fraudulent research submissions. I suggest you contact your attorney immediately. Ray's mind raced. How had they discovered everything? Then his eyes fell on the manufacturing division acquisition papers, and sudden understanding struck him like a physical blow. The timing wasn't a coincidence. His phone buzzed again, not Sherry this time, but his CFO. Ray, the SEC is here. There. Inquiring about the shell corporations and the concealed accounts, someone had sent them everything. Through the glass walls, Ray witnessed the chaos unfurling across the office. Agents were stationed at every computer, employees were being interviewed, and boxes of documents were being carried out. His meticulously constructed world was unraveling, thread by thread. Mr. Aguilar. Inspector Chin's voice sliced through his panic. We'll need access to your personal files as well, particularly anything relating to the recent Meditech manufacturing division acquisition. Ray's hand shifted toward his desk drawer, toward the USB drive that held the real numbers, the ones revealing just how deeply BioAdvance was hemorrhaging money. But before he could reach it, 2 agents stepped forward, their silent message unmistakable. Everything was evidence now. His phone would not stop buzzing. Messages from board members, from shareholders, from his wife's lawyers. Everyone wanted answers he could not give. A commotion near the elevator seized his attention. News cameras. Somehow, the press had already caught wind of the raid. Through the glass, he watched his carefully crafted image disintegrate in real time, as reporters filmed federal agents carrying boxes of evidence through his lobby. Sir. His assistant's voice again, sharp with alarm. Church Industries just announced their acquisition of the Meditech Research Division and patents. It's all over the financial news. The pieces finally clicked into place in Ray's mind. The manufacturing division he had been so eager to acquire. Enrique had known. He had known about the defects, the quality control issues. He had known everything, the entire time. Ray thought he was springing a trap. Instead, he had been walking into one himself. His phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number containing only a short video clip. It was security camera footage from years ago, showing him accepting confidential Meditech documents from Sherry in a hotel lobby. The message below it was simple. The FBI has the rest. As federal agents began systematically dismantling his office, Ray Aguilar, the man who had built his success upon stolen innovations and fraudulent data, sank into his leather chair. Through the wall of windows, he could see his reflection fragmenting in the morning sun, the perfect metaphor for his empire's collapse. Shermolina Moore's Louboutin heels clicked against the marble floors of her Bel Air mansion as she paced the foyer, her perfectly manicured fingers clutching her phone. 17 missed calls to Ray, all unanswered. The news was everywhere. BioAdvance offices raided, stock in free fall, federal investigations launched. This was not how today was supposed to go. Today was supposed to be about final preparations for the triplets' birthday celebration, about the smooth transition of power, about her triumphant emergence as the soon-to-be Mrs. Ray Aguilar. The front door opened, and her housekeeper entered, carrying a large manila envelope. This was just delivered by courier, Mrs. Moore. They said it was urgent. Cher's hands trembled as she tore open the envelope. Divorce papers spilled out, followed by something worse. Documents, dozens of them. Security camera footage stills showing her meetings with Ray, email printouts detailing their conspiracy, bank statements from the shell corporations. But it was the last set of papers that made her blood run cold. Property deeds, credit card statements, hotel receipts. Not just for her, but for 3 other women. All arranged in the same pattern, all funded through the same hidden accounts, all bearing dates stretching back years before she had ever met Ray. Her phone buzzed. Not Ray, but Zara. Mom, have you seen social media? They're saying Ray's being arrested. There are pictures of FBI agents at BioAdvance. Darling, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Sherry tried to keep her voice steady. Everything's going to be fine. But Lucas just texted me from Ray's office. He was there for his mentoring session when the agents arrived. The Food and Drug Administration arrived, stating concerns regarding falsified research data and defective products. Mom, what is happening? The doorbell chimed once more, and this time, when the housekeeper answered, a team of Securities and Exchange Commission agents stood at the threshold, warrant in hand. Mrs. Moore, the lead agent began, his tone professionally detached. We need to inquire about your involvement in transferring confidential information from Meditech Solutions to BioAdvance Industries. Sherry's world seemed to shatter as she peered through the open door and noticed news vans assembling at the gate. Somewhere inside the house, her phone continued to buzz with messages she now dreaded to read. Hours later, after the agents had concluded their initial questioning and confiscated her computers, Sherry sat alone in her immaculate living room, encircled by the remnants of her meticulously constructed life collapsing around her. The divorce papers remained where she had dropped them, alongside the incriminating evidence of Ray's other affairs. Her phone had finally fallen silent, but the ensuing quiet felt even more oppressive. The last message she had received was from Lucas. Just saw the arrest footage. How long have you and Ray been deceiving us? As the sun began to set, Sophia appeared in the doorway, her face pale, yet composed. I discovered the DNA test results last month, she stated softly. The ones that confirmed our real father was telling the truth all along. Sherry looked up at her youngest child, noticing for the first time how strongly Sophia resembled Enrique in moments of moral clarity. Sophia, you don't understand. I understand completely, Sophia replied, her voice still wrapped in silk. You and Ray lied to us our entire lives. You made us despise our real father, so you could take his company and his family. She gestured toward the scattered documents, the empty house, and the news van still visible through the windows. And now, everyone knows the truth. Where are your siblings? Sherry asked, suddenly aware of how quiet the house had become. Zara is at her friend's house. She couldn't bear to be here. After viewing those photographs of Ray with his other companions, Sophia's emphasis on the final word causing Sherry to flinch. Lucas struggled to process the revelation that his mentor had constructed his entire career upon stolen ideas and fraudulent research. A notification abruptly sliced through the tension, this time from Sophia's phone. She glanced at the screen, her expression inscrutable. They've just released the video of Ray being escorted out of BioAdvance in handcuffs. It's trending across every platform. The full weight of her circumstances crashed upon Sherry with relentless force. The flawless existence she had envisioned, the seamless transfer of authority, the fairy tale conclusion with her influential new husband, all of it proved to be lies, built upon still more lies. Now, as federal agents sifted through evidence of her betrayal, and as her children confronted the brutal reality of their parents' deceit, she grasped one further devastating truth. Enrique was gone. Have you heard from your father? She asked, fighting to keep desperation from her voice. Sophia's laugh was devoid of warmth. Which one? The man who deceived us and manipulated us as pawns in his corporate fraud scheme, or our real father? The one you taught us to despise because it made your affair easier to manage. Before Sherry could reply, Another notification chimed. Sophia read it, then regarded her mother with mingled pity and disgust. The board of BioAdvance has just announced an emergency meeting. Apparently, Ray's wife, his actual wife, the one he never intended to leave, is demanding a comprehensive audit of all his business dealings. She paused, then added pointedly, including his personal expenses. Sherry's eyes drifted once more to the divorce papers, seeing now for the first time the meticulous prenuptial agreement she had signed years earlier, the one she had forgotten in her haste to construct a more magnificent future. Like everything else in her carefully assembled world, it, too, had been a trap lying in wait. Meanwhile, the Caribbean sun painted the horizon in brilliant shades of orange and pink as Enrique Moore stood on the balcony of his villa. From his beachfront home, Enrique watched the waves roll steadily in. 6 months had passed since the day Ray Aguilar was let out of BioAdvance in handcuffs, since the carefully orchestrated destruction of his corrupt empire had played out exactly as planned. The morning's Financial Times lay on the table beside him, its headlines still visible. Former BioAdvance CEO faces additional federal charges. But Enrique was no longer interested in Ray's legal troubles. His attention was fixed on the young woman walking up the beach path, her dark hair catching the evening light. Sophia had called the week before, asking if she could visit. She had graduated early from Westfield Academy. Her ethical exposé of corporate fraud in the medical device industry had earned her not only academic honors, but early admission to several prestigious universities. Dad, her voice carried up from the path. She still said the word carefully, as if testing its truth each time. Up here, he called back, watching as she climbed the steps to his balcony. She carried herself differently now, straighter, more confident, unburdened by the weight of lies. I got accepted to the biomed engineering program, she said without preamble. Full scholarship. Enrique smiled, recognizing his own direct approach to important news. Congratulations. Have you told your siblings? Sophia's expression clouded slightly. Zara is still processing. She's in therapy now, trying to understand how she let herself be manipulated for so long. And Lucas, she sighed. Lucas is angry, not just at Mom and Ray, but at himself for believing them. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower over the water. Below them, the lights of Enrique's new research facility were beginning to come on. The sign reading, "More Ethical Medical Innovations," glowed softly in the gathering dusk. I saw the announcement about your new affordable cardiac stent, Sophia said finally. The one designed specifically for developing nations' healthcare systems. It's really meaningful. With an impressive demeanor, Enrique turned to study his daughter's face, seeing in it the same passion for innovation and for helping others that had driven him to build Meditech in the first place. The trust funds are doing well, he said carefully. The educational provisions are generating solid returns. I know, Sophia replied. The trustees send quarterly reports. Her smile held a touch of irony. Very detailed reports, with lots of emphasis on ethical investment strategies. Another comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the sound of waves and distant music from the beach bars. Finally, Sophia spoke again, her voice smaller and more uncertain. Do you think Zara and Lucas will ever understand why you did what you did? Enrique considered the question carefully. Understanding takes time. And sometimes, the hardest person to forgive isn't the one who wronged you, but yourself, for not seeing the truth sooner. Sophia nodded, then reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. I've been writing to them, trying to explain things from my perspective. About finding the DNA test, about overhearing Ray's real nature, about realizing how Mom manipulated us all. She paused, then added, Lucas actually wrote back last week. He asked about your new company's internship program. A shooting star streaked across the darkening sky, and for a moment, both father and daughter watched its arc in silence. Below them, researchers were leaving the facility for the day, their voices carrying faintly on the evening breeze. Discussions of clinical trials, of affordable medical solutions, of innovations that could help people rather than just generate profits. There's something else, Sophia said hesitantly. I've been thinking after I finish my degree, would there be a place for me here? Not because of family obligation, but because what you're doing, making medical technology accessible to everyone, focusing on ethics over profits. It's what I want to do, too. Enrique felt a profound sense of connection and hope, seeing his own aspirations reflected in his daughter's earnest gaze. Something within his chest finally released. His revenge had been perfect, yes. Ray and Sherry had lost everything they had schemed for. Their corruption was exposed, their lies revealed. But this moment, watching his daughter choose her own path toward ethical innovation, toward healing rather than harm, this was better than revenge. The door will always be open, he said simply, for all of you. As the stars began to appear above them, father and daughter stood together on the balcony, looking out over the facility where a new legacy was being built. One based on truth, integrity, and the simple idea that doing good could be good business, too. The waves continued their eternal rhythm below, washing away old pain, bringing in new possibilities. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more opportunities, more chances to prove that the best revenge wasn't just about destroying the corrupt, but about building something better in the aftermath. Epilogue 5 years later, the Wall Street Journal's weekend edition lay open on Rex Church's mahogany desk, its headline bold against the crisp paper. From Scandal to Success, the Redemption of Medical Technology. The article chronicled the 5-year anniversary of what business schools now called the Meditech ambition, a cautionary tale of corporate ethics, family loyalty, and the price of betrayal. Rex leaned back in his leather chair, remembering the day his legal team had first approached him about acquiring Meditech's research division. The article captured the aftermath perfectly. Former BioAdvance CEO Raymond Aguilar began serving his 12-year federal sentence last month after exhausting his final appeal. The charges, ranging from corporate fraud to patent theft, from falsifying FDA submissions to embezzlement, painted a picture of systematic corruption that rocked the medical device industry. His former company, once a billion-dollar powerhouse, now exists only in bankruptcy court documents and business ethics case studies. Mr. Church studied his intercom, which had suddenly gone silent. Enrique Moore's name appeared on the screen. Rex smiled as he picked up the phone. Enrique, I was just reading about your latest breakthrough, affordable insulin delivery systems. You're making my R&D team look lazy. Your team is doing just fine, Enrique replied, his voice carrying the relaxed tone of a man at peace with his choices. I saw the numbers from the STIN project, Rex continued. You've doubled accessibility in developing markets using your patents and research. Rex reminded him, best acquisition I ever made, even if I didn't fully understand your plan at the time. They chatted about market projections and innovation pipelines, but both men knew the real reason for the call. Today marked another milestone, the first graduating class from the Whistleblower Protection Foundation's corporate ethics program. How's Kurt handling the foundation? Rex asked. Like a man who found his true calling, Enrique chuckled. The program has already prevented 3 major corporate fraud attempts. Turns out my old head of security makes an excellent ethics watchdog. The conversation shifted to personal matters. Sophia's startup is taking off, Enrique reported proudly. She's combined her biomedical engineering degree with ethical innovation principles. The vaccine distribution system she developed for remote areas is attracting serious investor attention. And the others? Rex asked. A slight pause followed. Lucas graduated from business school last month. He's interning with an ethics compliance firm. Says he wants to understand how to prevent what happened at BioAdvance from happening again. Enrique's voice softened. And Zara is getting married next spring. She asked me to walk her down the aisle. After ending the call, Rex pulled up the rest of the article on his tablet. Sher Molina, formerly Moore, was sentenced to 3 years for her role in corporate espionage, serving 2 before early release. Sources say she now lives in a modest apartment in Phoenix. Her access to her former lifestyle was thwarted by the prenuptial agreement she had signed 2 decades earlier. Her civil suit, which claimed partial ownership of more ethical medical innovations, was dismissed with prejudice, the judge citing overwhelming evidence of systematic betrayal and fraud. Ray Ailes' web of deception unraveled spectacularly. His wife of 30 years divorced him immediately after discovering his multiple affairs and financial fraud. The SEC investigation revealed 4 separate families he had maintained using embezzled corporate funds. BioAdvance shareholders lost billions when the company collapsed, leading to the largest corporate fraud settlement in medical device industry history. Yet from these ashes rose something unexpected: more ethical medical innovations, founded by Enrique Moore in the Caribbean, revolutionized the approach to medical device development. Their focus on affordable, accessible healthcare solutions opened new markets while maintaining strict ethical standards. The company's partnership with Church Industries Research Division produced breakthrough technologies at a fraction of traditional costs. Across town, in a sun-filled conference room, Kurt Osborne addressed the graduating class of corporate ethics officers. The foundation he led had become a powerful force for industry reform, its whistleblower protection programs setting new standards for corporate accountability. The Meditech story isn't just about revenge, he told his students. It's about choices. Every day, in boardrooms and offices around the world, people choose between easy profits and ethical behavior. Your job is to make sure they have the support and protection they need to choose correctly. At that moment, in a small Phoenix apartment, Molina scrolled through her social media feed. Photos of her children's successes flashed past: Sophia accepting an innovation award, Lucas graduating with honors, Zara announcing. Her engagement had not been accompanied by invitations to any of these events. Her attempts to reach out were met with silence or, worse, impersonal form letters from their lawyers. Her phone displayed a reminder. Another mandatory check-in with her parole officer awaited her. The designer bags and luxury cars were long gone, replaced by bus passes and off-brand clothing. Her former society friends had vanished, along with her status. Occasionally, she saw her name mentioned in articles about corporate fraud, always as a cautionary example. Meanwhile, in a federal prison in Colorado, Ray Aguilar sat in his cell, reading a letter from his former wife's attorneys. The last of his hidden accounts had been discovered and seized. His attempts to publish a memoir had been blocked by legal injunctions. Even his children from his multiple affairs had changed their names, distancing themselves from his toxic legacy. Back in the Caribbean, Enrique Moore stood in his company's research lab, watching Sophia present her latest innovation to a team of developers. Her passion for ethical technology matched his own, but she brought fresh perspectives and new ideas. The lab bore a plaque dedicating it to truth and innovation, a subtle reminder of the lessons learned from corporate deception. Lucas now had his own office at the ethics compliance firm, its walls decorated with case studies of corporate fraud. His colleagues did not know that he spent hours studying the BioAdvance collapse, understanding how charm and manipulation had blinded so many to obvious red flags. His quarterly reports to the foundation often included insights drawn from his unique perspective as both a victim and a student of corporate deception. Zara's journey had been different, but equally transformative. Her experience had led her to psychology, specializing in helping children of parental betrayal. Her upcoming wedding would include her father and siblings, but the two empty seats in the front row would silently acknowledge the absence of those who could not be there. She acknowledged the parents whose choices had reshaped her understanding of love and loyalty. The Whistleblower Protection Foundation's headquarters displayed a mission statement that captured the lasting impact of the Meditech story. Truth is not just about exposing lies. It's about building something better from the revelation. In his Caribbean home office, Enrique added final notes to the ethics guidebook he had been writing. The last chapter, titled The Price of Truth, contained a passage that business schools would soon quote in their ethics programs. Revenge without purpose is merely destruction, but when coupled with protection of the innocent and creation of positive change, it becomes transformation. The true measure of justice isn't in what falls, but in what rises from the ashes. His phone lit up with a family group chat notification. Sophia sharing pictures of her latest prototype, Lucas asking for feedback on an ethics compliance framework, Zara discussing wedding plans. The trust funds he had established had grown significantly, managed by people who understood both finance and integrity. But the real wealth wasn't in the accounts. It was in the lessons learned, the principles upheld, the relationships rebuilt on foundations of truth. The sun set over the Caribbean Sea, painting the sky in colors no artist could capture. In his research facility below, scientists worked on innovations that would save lives without bankrupting families. In offices around the world, His children built their own legacies of ethical behavior and positive change. And in prison cells and modest apartments, those who had chosen deception lived with the consequences of their choices. The business press had called it medical device mogul's masterful revenge, but that headline missed the deeper truth. It wasn't just about punishment or justice or even vindication. It was about transformation of an industry, of a family, of the very notion of success. As the final paragraph of the Wall Street Journal article so perfectly captured, the enduring legacy of the Meditech story is not found in the courtrooms where Ray and Sher Molina faced justice, nor in the bankruptcy filings that dismantled BioAdvance's corrupt empire. Rather, it lives on in the lives saved by affordable medical devices, in the whistleblowers shielded by strengthened corporate ethics programs, and in the next generation of business leaders who have learned that true success is measured not by what one takes, but by what one builds, protects, and leaves behind. As night descended over the Caribbean, lights illuminated research laboratories and ethics offices across the globe. In each of these places, individuals confronted choices between easy profit and difficult truth, between short-term gain and long-term value. And in many of those decisive moments, they recalled the story of a man who had lost everything except his integrity, and in preserving that integrity, he built something far greater than all he had lost. The waves rolled eternally against the shore, their rhythm a reminder that time moves only forward. In their endless cycle of destruction and renewal, they echoed the fundamental truth Ray Molina had discovered, that sometimes the most perfect revenge is simply to build a better future from the ruins of betrayal. And so, our story draws to a close. We invite you to share your reflections in the comments section. Thank you for your time. If you have enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I look forward to seeing you there.